So when I work at shows, here's what I hear all the time when I'm in the serger section. I have my serger, but I don't get the full use out of it. And the other thing I hear is, I want to start making garments, but I don't know where to start. So I think I have a solution. You can make some practice little kid stuff. Now warning, cuteness overload, pretty cute stuff. So you can practice on little stuff and get ready to do some big stuff and learn how to use your serger. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Let's start serging. So I really do think that making some small kids' clothes is a great way to kind of dip your toe in. If you don't have a kid to sew for, I'm sure you can find one. Or donate it to charity. Or find a hospital where they can use some cool stuff. When you start making garments, it's really pretty easy. There's tons of patterns out there on the internet, but you can also get a pattern from the big pattern companies. So this is like super, super cute. This is a little bathing suit, and you're going to learn a lot of serger techniques. Now this one has all kinds of different sizes that's included. When you get a pattern, a lot of times there's multiple sizes that you can cut out. Right? And there's a lot of instructions. All of the instructions are here, and they're really pretty detailed, even if you've never sewn before. So find a pattern that you kind of like, something that you're interested in. If when you're making kids' clothes and you're working on your serger, there are lots of options. I think it's a great way to start because it doesn't take a lot of fabric, right? You get to practice making a garment. The same construction methods you make on little clothes are the same that you're going to be making on big clothes, and fit is seldom an issue, right? Because it's just a baby clothes. So, and you can also customize it. So you can make it kind of special. So here's a little jacket. And I did the cover stitch, the back of the cover stitch to stitch down the facing. Really kind of fun. You can get some fun fabric. Shop in the remnant section because you don't need very much. Look at this cute little monster knit fabric that I got. Now the instructions, they're your pattern. The instructions are going to be probably for using a sewing machine. It's not that much different if you're going to be using a serger. In fact, you can kind of modify instructions. I have a handout that talks a little bit about that. When you're going to do any kind of garment, a lot of times you want to do what's called flat construction. And what that means is you're going to make the sewing order so that the garment stays as flat as possible for as long as possible. So in other words, on this little romper, here's my little romper, I did my embroidery. It's easier to do an embroidery. If you're going to add an embroidery to a child's garment, it's easier to add it when it's flat, isn't it? Or it's even easier to stitch it and then cut out the piece, positioning it perfectly. But the sleeves have been attached, the zipper's going to go back here, and then I'm going to do the side seams and the little part where you can access the diaper. We know what that is. Now I'm going to put on elastic. We're going to go to the serger and I'm going to sew you just a few stitches that work on the serger for garments. One of them is actually you can add elastic and not have to create that casing. You can create a casing really easy. Here's a simple casing we're going to do on the serger, but you can actually just sew elastic on directly and don't have to put it in a casing. Or you can make a sweet little edge. Here's the edge of a shirt, and see how it just has that cover stitch going around to stitch it down? Or you're going to do the edge of a ruffle. Here's the edge of a ruffle, and just that rolled hem stitch does a perfect job. Or you could stretch it and make that lettuce edge. There's so many options when you're using a serger and you're going to make a garment. So let's start with some kids' garments. And let's go to the serger. And I have just a few stitches that I want to show you. And I want to show you how easy it is to convert a Babylock Serger from one stitch to the other so you can flow through your garment. We're going to convert over then to a cover stitch. I want you to see how easy it is and how some of these stitches let you get the full use out of your serger and on the way you can make some pretty cute stuff. Let's go over to the serger. So let's start out with the basic. We're going to start out with a 4 thread. Your serger probably is going to come that way right out of the box, but a 4 thread is a pretty basic stitch. What it has is it has two different looper threads, the upper looper and the lower looper, and we're using both of the overlock needles, needles 1 and 2. What I have done is I put all the same color. Now they don't all have to be the same color when you're serging. You don't have to get 9,000 different spools of thread. But I've made overlock needle 2 a different color because I want to show you about gathering and how easy that is. So my serger's all threaded up. Remember, we're working on the Babylock Triumph today, and it's going to be pretty easy to switch. We're going to start mostly with the overlock stitches, and then we're going to switch over to cover stitches. So let's go. So now I have the basic regular foot on the machine, and your serger is going to do a seam, that 4 thread seam. I could add a cover or chain stitch to make it 5 thread. I could even go up to 8 threads if I want to. But a 4 thread seam is pretty easy. It's going to trim and give you professional results right out of the box. So I have my little sample here, and there's seams on this. Let me show you. The seams on this have been done with that 4 thread. So the basic seams have been done on my little pair of pants here. Let's do that sport hem where we're going to be putting in elastic. Now what happens is this sport hem, I'm going to show you how it is. It's folded. Here's my sample. It's folded so that, I'm sure you've seen this on the top of a pair of pants. Here's that top. There's that seam, and here's where the elastic goes in, okay? So it's super easy to do, especially with that 4 thread. So I folded my top of my pants to do that. And I've got a sample here. I tried to show you how it's going to be folded. So I have a big piece of foam to show you how to fold it. So what you do is you fold down the casing for where your elastic's going to go. See how that works? And then we're going to fold this backwards to have an area where we're going to stitch along that fold, and we're going to trim this off. Do you see how that makes that S shape? Now this is the same shape that you would make on the top. It's called the blind hem fold because you can do a blind hem on your serger. You're going to be stitching right along here. You're going to be using a 2 thread flatlock for that. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but that's the basic fold that you're going to use. You like my big fluffy example? All right, so now here we go. I have it all set up. I'm going to be trimming off that edge. We're going to bring it on up, raise our presser foot, put it underneath, and I'm going to be stitching so that I'm stitching right along that fold. So that's as simple as it is. If you were to make a pair of pants, well, our size, it would be just that easy to do that top casing. And then the elastic is going to go through. Now I left an opening in one of the seams to put my elastic in. And all I have to do is finish my flat construction, is do the little inseam on the bottom of the pair of pants. Now, I can make a pair of pants for me or a little kid faster than I could wash and dry a pair. So that's pretty simple. Sticking with that 4 thread, we can do some gathering like I showed you on that little bathing suit. Here's the cutest little bathing suit ever, and these little ruffles on the back were gathered, and the serger does a spectacular job making gathers. So let's do that. Let's gather on up. Let's grab my piece of fabric. So I just have a piece of fabric and we're going to gather it. What are the changes I have to do? Well, I can simply come over here to my differential feed, push it on up. The Babylock Triumph and a lot of the Babylock self-threading sergers, they have they have a very special patent on their differential feed, and it does a super good job. Now, I can also put on my ruffling foot to gather just a little bit more. And with the ruffling foot, I can sew a flat piece to a gathered piece at the same time. Let's just use the regular foot and see what we get. So I'm going to come on up here. I'm still on that 4 thread, and I've just increased my differential feed. That's as easy as it is. Now that's a pretty nice little gather, I think you will agree. But the reason I did that other color on that O2 thread, that's the thread that's in the needle on the right hand side, is I can pull that thread up and adjust my gathers. So all I have to do is find that thread on the side, pull it on up, and I can gather it even more. So I can have the gathers the exact distance that I want. And that's what I did with the little ruffles on the real bottom of that on that little bathing suit. And I did that rolled hem stitch on the side. In fact, I did a wave rolled hem on the edge. So here's my little ruffle. Here's what I did on the edge of that. I did that wave rolled hem because it's a bathing suit. You don't think I'm not going to be using the exclusive Babylock wave stitch, did you, for a second? So that's the stitch I used on the edge. And I just ruffled it up just like I just showed you and gathered it up with that other thread. So let's switch over and let's go to a 3-thread. And a 3-thread's where I can use to put an elastic or I can put in a neckline. It's as simple as this. I have both needles in right now. Let me open this up so that you can see. Both needles are in right now. And if I take out either the left needle or the right needle, I've gone to a 3-thread. Of course, I'm going to take off the thread that goes with it too. So let me take off. In this case, I'm going to take off that right needle, needle 2. If I took off the left needle, I'd be doing that rolled hem just by turning the dial. But let's take off that left one. I've taken the needle out. Notice I left the thread in the machine. That way, if I accidentally drop my needle, I'm not going to lose it. And we'll take the thread out too. Now we're using 3 threads in our serger. So now let's do something that we would do with a 3-thread. I have the bottom of my little diaper cover here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach elastic in this opening right here. And it's really simple to do. Now, you can use an elastic foot. And an elastic foot, let me move some of this out of the way. It looks like this. The elastic goes in this end right here, and what it does, it's going to hold that elastic back for you. Now, I really don't have to do that, but this is going to help me if I want to. So let's do it without the elastic foot, and I want to show you how easy it is. So we have a 3-thread. I'm not going to really change anything except I'm going to lengthen the stitch just a little bit. All I do is turn the lower large knob and that adjusts the length. And I'm just going to take my elastic and attach it on the bottom. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start to sew on the fabric. So let's get that started here. And I'm going to go a couple stitches on into the fabric just to hold it. Now I'm just going to take my elastic and I'm going to insert it right in front of that needle. I'm going to lift up the presser foot and put my elastic right in the front of the needle. And when I lower my presser foot, boom, it's right there and good to go. I'm going to take a couple stitches into the elastic. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be sewing along the edge of my little diaper cover pair of pants. I'm sewing on the wrong side. And I'm just going to gently stretch my elastic as I go. Now you can predetermine how much elastic that you're going to put on there. In fact, this pattern has a sample of how long my elastic should be for every different size. But I've kind of been playing with this a little bit and I know pretty much how much to pull it. You practice and you're going to get your skill set knowing how far to pull it. So let's pull that elastic just a little bit, and as we stitch along the side, we're just going to stitch it on. So what I did is I stretched my elastic as I sewed it onto the edge of the little diaper cover. Now, using that elastic foot, it's going to hold a certain amount of stretch for you, and you're going to experiment and find that. But that's pretty easy. Now, what I would do is after I get that side seam, I'm just going to fold it down like that, stretch it once again, and top stitch it down. Here's what it looks like on the little bathing suit. Here's the inside where it's been stitched down, and here's the top. Look what a clean, professional finish that is. So that's pretty simple. Now, if you're going to do the edge of say a t-shirt, I'm going to put some ribbing around the edge. It doesn't have to be ribbon, just could be a stretchy fabric. Let's put some of that on. Here's my little flat construction romper that I'm going to make. And here's the exact distance that edge, that neckline edge is going to be. Here's the formula. Now the formula is in your handout, but basically what the formula says is it's generally about 3/4 of what the ribbing, the distance of the neckline is going to be. Easy for me to say, and I'm a professional talker. Okay, here we go. So there's half, and half of that is going to be, that's going to be about 3/4. And that's kind of giving you a visual about how much it's going to be. I'm just going to put a clip in there just so that I know. And what I would do is I would divide this into halves and quarters, fold it right sides together, and then I know where every part's going to fit. I do the same with my neckline as well. But it's going to be pretty simple to put on. I'm going to have it clipped onto that, but let me just give you a visual. Here we go. It's the same idea as the elastic. So let's just get started. Get my elastic out of there. I don't want to sew elastic onto this. So I'm going to get started. Sew a little bit on in. Now remember, I will have marked and put the exact parts where the exact parts need to be. I had to be dividing this into quarters and halves and marking that. Oops. And then when I stitch it, I'm going to gently stretch it so that both are coming in at the same time. But let me just give you a visual of what that looks like. I've started it, and you can see how that's going to be the sweetest little neckline going around my little romper. And then I'm going to put the zipper into the back. So it's pretty easy to put that neckline in. You're going to remember that you have those kind of measurements. It's going to be about 3/4. Kind of experiment and see what works for you, but your pattern is probably going to tell you exactly the size that this ribbing needs to be. So, what are we going to do now? We've done a 4 thread. All we had to do a 3 thread was to take that one needle out, right? Now, let's do something a little bit more advanced. Let's do something kind of fun, and let's go to a 2 thread flatlock. Now, with most sergers, you're going to have to get out the manual. You're going to have to read it. You're going to take everything out and rethread it. This is a Babylock serger. You absolutely don't have to do that. So let's check it out. Let's get out that quick threading guide. And let's see what we have to do for that fancy 2 thread flatlock. Here's the instructions right here. And I can see that what I need to do is I need to go down to 2 threads, and I need to move one over and bring one up to the needle. Let me show you what that looks like on the machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take, and what's going to happen is this upper looper thread is going to go to the needle, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this one needle, this one thread coming up over to here, and I'm going to take that needle thread out because I'm going to use the upper looper thread for that. So now I have no thread in the needle. This upper looper thread, it goes over to the needle. Wacky, I know. But in the quick reference threading guide, it shows me exactly where that comes up and goes. So I'm going to dive down in and I'm going to grab it right here from its little thread path. Easy for me to say. There it is. I found it. I got it. Now what it's going to do is it's going to come over and go over to the needle. There's a hook right there. Here we go. Up and down. And I don't have to move the needle because it's in the right spot. But I do have to thread it. And what's really exciting about the Triumph is it threads the needles for me. So what I'm going to do is bring down my needle threader and I'm going to get that thread pretty darn close. Remember, I'm doing something wacky. I'm bringing it down over here. So let's get it close, push the little button and get that needle threaded. Wasn't that fast and easy? Now, all I have to do is one more thing. I'm going to take this, and this is called a subsidiary looper, and it shows me in my instruction book that that's exactly what I need to do. Now, I didn't have to completely rethread my machine, but I do have to take that one thread and thread it up in there. And it shows me exactly that when I'm using my quick reference threading chart. I'm ready to go for my Flatlock. Oops, put it into serging. Now, for that little bathing suit, here's what I did. I put it on with that Flatlock because it's a very flat stitch. That's the name Flatlock. And I just sewed right along the edge here to sew my little ruffle onto the little panty set. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew it. I'm just going to catch it. But I use the optional overlock table. Let me show you what that looks like. This table works great, but there's a new sheriff in town. It's the overlock table, and I like it because what it does is it gives me this nice flat table here, and I can actually control, I think, and hold the fabric just a little bit better. I actually have a fabric guide I can put on there as well. So let's see, I have that extra bit there. We're going to sew right along our edge with our Flatlock. Get both of my edges together, and let's see what we got. So I stitched it on, but I stitched it on that folded edge. Now here's the magic. Now my ruffle is on and it's flat, and there's the back, and look how fun that is. That edge is completely caught into that seam, and you can see that it's perfect. It was easy, and I didn't have to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Remember that first thing that I showed you, that where we did the elastic casing? Check it out. I want to show you this one thing, which is pretty cool. I can use that Flatlock stitch with the very same idea. I just made the stitch kind of shorter, and check it out. Here's that casing, there's that back of that Flatlock, and look at how pretty that is. And it's nice and flat. If you have any sportswear where they have that nice flat casing in the top, that's exactly how they did it. And you can see it's pretty easy to do with your serger. That's just the back of it, and I used a decorative thread. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show you, and that's pretty cool. It is the cover stitch. And I want to change the machine over. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the thread away from the overlock side. So we're going to cut it all away and take it out of the machine. And what we need to do is we have 2 needles that we're going to put in to the left-hand side or the cover stitch side. So let's switch those needles over. We're going to thread both of those needles, but we need a cover stitch looper, which is this 3rd hole right over here. So now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to use all of my fuchsia thread, because that's what we're going to stitch on. Looper's threaded, and on most sergers that's the hardest part, is that cover stitch looper is kind of hard to get to. Let's just thread our needles. And the needles are threaded by cover stitch loopers threaded. I don't need that upper looper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down. And it's going to go down and it's going to rest because I don't really need it. And I need my cover stitch table on there. The cover stitch table comes with the machine and it just snaps on. And there, I've completely changed over from overlock to cover stitch. Remember, you can do both of those, the cover stitch and any of the overlock functions at the same time. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you how the cover stitch goes on. And I want to show you how to do the end when you do a continuous. So I have my little hat right here. Here's my little hat. And what I've done is in that cover stitch looper, I've put a fancy thread. So I'm showing the back side on my little hat, but I want to do this part right up here where I'm covering that part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up it on the machine, and you're going to stitch on the top side of the fabric, and you're going to want to catch that raw edge on the bottom, and you can't see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little hat, turn it inside out so it's easy to get to, and I'm going to attach my fabric guide. The fabric guide attaches to the very front of the overlock table. So I'm going to go right up to here. It's going to use these two sets of holes right there. And with your machine, you have two attachment screws. They live in your little side compartment. And I'm going to attach it right over here. And I can use it to make sure I hit that edge perfectly. So here's my little hat, and I folded it and pressed it. I know it's hard to see, but I know exactly where that's supposed to be. So let's take everything up, put it on in there. Oops, I have to lower my blade too, because I don't want to cut my little hat. All right, there it is. And I know that I'm going to be stitching right along in here. See how much room this Triumph has? If I'm doing a deep cover stitch, I have all the room to the right. So now, here it is. I'm going to bring it up so I have that edge right where I want it to be. Got to feel it. There we go. I'm going to move my guide all the way over. Now this is the same what you do around the edge of the top of just a plain shirt or the bottom. This is that professional hem that's on the bottom of all your garments that are knit with the sleeves, the hem. This is the exact stitch that you're going to use. Now here's what we're going to do. We're just going to bring it on up, lower that presser foot, and we're just going to go. Oh my goodness! I left it on gather. Well, let me show you what that looks like. You got to remember to always do all of your adjustments. Let me take it on out. Now, how do you remove it out? What you're going to do is you're going to lift it up, take those threads away, give those top threads a click, and pull it on out. Well, I made a fancy stitch on my hat, didn't I? Check it out. I kind of like it. So there's my gather on the top. I did my cover stitch, but I gathered with it too. Now, did I do it on purpose or was I do it accidentally? Because that actually looks pretty cool. You can gather with the cover stitch too. There are so many different options on this machine. There's 86 different stitch combinations. There's tons of different accessory feet. So if you're interested in doing any kind of a garment, there's a way that this machine is going to help you do that. If you do little stuff, if you do big person stuff, there's a way that this machine is going to make it professional, easy, and even kind of decorative if that's what you want to do. Thanks for sticking with me today. See how changing the machine was easy? I'm going to shoot it off to George because the Triumph and any Babylock Serger is going to get you where you want to go.
Thanks, Kathy. That was an amazing presentation. The Triumph and the Accolade. Both these models have Babylock's exclusive 8-thread configuration. That means that we can do 4-thread serging, 3-thread serging, 2-thread, we can do a cover hem, and then we can combine them all together. I love how this works with denim because all those 8 threads really hold the thicker fabric, as well as for ruffling. Nothing ruffles like that. And they also both share auto thread delivery. That means that it has a special mechanism inside that forms the stitch so you don't have to work with tension. And so I can work with metallics, I can work with knits, I can work with shears, I can do rolled edge instantly. They are amazing. What's the difference between the two? Well, first of all, it's price. But the Triumph does have revolutionary threading. That means it threads the needles as well as the loopers, where the Accolade has extraordinaire threading, which threads the loopers. Also, the Triumph has a much larger opening, beautiful lighting, and that larger opening for cover hem and serging, it really gives you a lot more space. It also has the knee lift, which gives you hands-free operation. So both these are incredible, both are top in the industry, and both are on sale. So click on the link in the description. You'll see our special offer on both these models. You can email us at customerservice@moors-sew.com or call us at 1-800-865-9666.